Greetings adventurers, and welcome to the Loot Goblin Marketplace. Your character shouldn't be good at everything in RPG, both from a gameplay and a roleplay perspective. When you play in a group setting, shortcomings to your gameplay means that another player can fill that role as a specialist. It isn't fun if one person is so strong that it makes no sense for the rest of the party to be there. And to really excel at roleplay, your characters need a place that they can grow from. Being flawless from the start doesn't offer much room for that. If your character goes through the entire journey already self-actualized, then it isn't really a journey for them. It's more of a victory lap that your fellow players have to suffer through. Today's video is sponsored by CZEPEKU. When I made this YouTube channel, these guys were the sponsor that I wanted to have because I'm a longtime fan, and they've made my campaign preparation so much easier. You may already support them on Patreon because they make fantastic maps, scenes, and tokens. But did you know that they're all available now for the price of 2 subscriptions in one single bundle? Use the link below to grab the CZEPEKU Complete Fantasy Bundle and get 6,000 battle maps, 2,000 fantasy scenes, and 300 tokens that can be tweaked using their amazing token builder, meaning endless possibilities. Plus, more content is added every week. You can put together just about any scenario using this bundle in minutes and treat your party to beautiful hand-drawn assets that will blow them away. If you want to help support the channel, or you just want to use this amazing art on screen for your next game, click the link in the description below and support the bundle today. Now let's get back to the story. Today's treasure goes by the name Mary Sue gets 2 player characters killed, destroys the campaign, and can't admit she did wrong. Alright, so this is the story. I've been hesitating to post this one because the star of the story is an active player and a member of Roll20, as I've actually seen her signing up for other games and even trying to Dungeon Master some. No idea if she frequents Reddit or this subreddit, and considering her personality, I think she might throw a fit if she sees this. But screw it, I'm a bored man, and it's been a long time since I posted here, since I practically have posted all the other horror stories I've gathered from my 15 years of playing TTRPGs. About 1 year ago, I joined a game over Roll20 that emphasized heavy roleplay and story. It was a homebrew world, with the Dungeon Master having made his own map, lore, kingdoms, factions, and all that other good jazz. We have session 0 and everything seems great. I had high expectations for this game because everyone seemed to be in the same mindset of playing a serious roleplay narrative focused game with players that would also never miss sessions. As you may know, it's incredibly difficult to find players who show up weekly in a consistent manner. The star of the story is Miranda, divine sorceress and the chosen of all goodness and light, a 15-year-old naive teenager girl out to destroy evil after her father wanted her to become some political breeding wife, and she left her home in anger. I'm a human fighter, a gruff mercenary man in his 40s that has seen some tough stuff in his years of service as a soldier in the various wars fought by kingdoms across the land and a knight in sour armor. The other players are a wizard female half-elf Neat, who was kicked out by her family for being held up in her home all day and refusing to do any work, a warlock tiefling haunted by some big bad monster and wanting to free himself, and a half-elf female bard who I think just wanted to travel and make stories. Miranda was a problem. While she was most definitely a heavy role player, she had to roleplay everything. Waking up in the morning, taking a bath, changing clothes, waking everyone up and greeting them, eating breakfast, chatting about how everyone slept, having to discuss the current party plan that had been already discussed previously. And then finally, after 2 to 3 hours, we got to leave the tavern/inn we were sleeping at for the quest we wanted to undertake. This had an unfortunate effect, delaying every game by about 1 to 2 hours, and she never seemed to notice the Dungeon Master and other players becoming weary and wanting to press on. I, who after a few games of noticing this after the game, talked with the group and said we should try to make sessions go a little faster, to which Miranda replied, "No, this was a heavy roleplay game, right? No rushing, come on. If I wanted to just do combat, I wouldn't have joined this game that specifically said it was roleplay and narrative focused." Even when I tried telling her we should still go a little faster so we can actually tackle the story, she adamantly said no, and when all the other players said we should, she pouted and said she would try. However, her need to roleplay everything never changed. Miranda also needed to be the center of everything. When she wasn't taking an hour for herself during roleplay sessions, she was barging in on other character roleplay moments, and was inside probably 90% of scenes when other characters were trying to do their own thing. In my case, the party had recovered an ancient artifact inside a deep forest, returned to a group of forest elves, and during the tavern RP session, a cloaked woman had approached me. The two of us drink and chat, and she offers double the payment for the artifact and says the elves should not be trusted. To which, before I even got to reply, Miranda enters the private chat immediately and tells the cloaked woman, "Begone, rogue, we will not betray our employers and break trust." I didn't even get a chance to protest her barging in and how I had specified I was talking to the cloak woman in the corner before she threatens the cloak woman with a fight and forces her to leave. I am very frustrated, but not wanting to roll back and spend more time here, I let it go. Of course, the elves used the artifact to summon forest creatures and all sorts of fey creatures to destroy a nearby human town they hated, an act which the lawful good Miranda said was none of our business. So this is a perfect example of Miranda being kind of a liar, saying that they want to focus on roleplay, but the moment that the Dungeon Master plans and tries to introduce what's going to be a very interesting story beat, they come in and completely shut it down. I can understand one thing if the situation was played out how it should have been, where clearly this person was going to explain that the artifact was something that the elves were going to use for a purpose that maybe they're not being clear about, and then you have to decide which faction you're going to side with, the elves or the humans. The fact is though, she didn't allow any roleplay. She just took away the player agency, she completely shut down the Dungeon Master, and to a certain extent, I kind of blame the Dungeon Master for this, and the player for not speaking up in the moment. The Dungeon Master should say something along the lines of, look, you were over there, it's going to take you so long to come over, even if you heard what was going on, I'm still going to let the NPC talk here and give this player character a chance to have a little back and forth. And if they keep pushing back, you say, listen, other players need a chance to roleplay the thing you say you love so much. I'm curious to see how this progresses, but as of right now, the Dungeon Master should already be shutting down this. Now back to the story. In Warlock's case, sometime mid-campaign, he had a huge character moment where he finally confronted his evil patron on another dimension, and it was his character spotlight. The rest of us cannot enter this other dimension, so we wait while the Dungeon Master and Warlock can do their thing in the private channel. But Miranda, oh no, she can't wait like the rest of us. She needs to take the spotlight as well and tells the Dungeon Master she prays hard to her goddess to allow her inside the dimension. The Dungeon Master lets her roll a d100, and when she nabs a 90, she screams, yes, hell yeah, I'm doing this. So the Dungeon Master lets her inside the other dimension, and as far as I understand, Miranda stole the spotlight as she confronted the big evil patron, supposedly protecting Warlock, and when they came back, she was now converting Warlock to her patron. Warlock somehow still retained his powers, I don't know how. And lastly, Miranda hated when she wasn't doing well in combat. Anytime she was throwing guiding bolts, killing enemies, and wrecking shit, she was always giddy and screaming at the top of her lungs. I had to specifically lower her to 50% because it was killing my ears. However, when the dice weren't going her way, she would start cussing, pouting, complaining. If enemies ever knocked her down, she would passively aggressively whine, going, geez, I guess I can't do anything but make a death save. This is so fun. And when she did poorly in combat, it affected her decision making, such as the time when I told an enemy mercenary band that had been working for slavers to drop their arms when we were winning the encounter. They did, and Miranda proceeded to kill them, to which I questioned her decision making, and her reply was lawful good. To which, after the session, the other players out of character said Miranda seemed psychotic because of her character being a 15-year-old girl that was slaughtering people surrendering. To which Miranda got upset, said that she knew what she was doing, and she was a veteran of these games. And we all dropped it because she was writing multiple paragraphs in Discord about how she didn't do anything wrong. And honestly, even before we hear how they destroy the campaign, I can already see how this person is really insufferable to deal with. If you guys as a party, after every session, find yourselves complaining about one specific person in your Roll20 campaign, it's probably a good sign that you need to start confronting them. Because someone like this will always destroy your campaign, and we'll probably see shortly why. All of her behavior culminated in a fight that would destroy the campaign. We had tracked down the cult leader and attacked her base. Long story short, we killed a dozen mooks, several NPCs with character classes, and was finally confronted by the big bad evil wizard woman. The Dungeon Master describes how a dark aura permeates around her, and she tells us no mercy will be given to us. By this point, it was the 5 of us, some of us at very low HP with most of our resources spent, against the slaver wizard, an NPC apprentice she had, and some other NPC mercenary. It was going to be tough, but from what I see, a doable fight. Now, Miranda had done semi-poorly this fight, missed a lot of guiding bolts, had one of her fireballs counterspelled, and had practically used all of her resources. She was complaining and whining as usual, and like I said, her decision making was compromised, because when the big bad evil wizard woman came before us, she immediately grabbed the wizard and dimension doored out with her last spell. This was a point where I was like, whoa, wait, I think we're about to die if you do this. Miranda firmly stated we had had no chance in this fight. I told her my fighter is currently on haste, still has several as Battlemaster maneuvers, still had action surge, and that I was about to go all out on the enemy apprentice, which I was certain was going to kill her, making the fight become a 5v2. Miranda argues, well, that's if you roll well. You're assuming a lot of things. I'm making the best decision for everyone. Besides, it's already happened. I ask Wizard if she allows Miranda to dimension door her because it requires consent, and because Miranda and Wizard had started a romantic relationship. Wizard hesitantly replies, yeah, I think in character she has no reason not to consent, so yeah, Miranda and Wizard teleport 500 feet away. My turn comes up and the party decides we have no choice but to flee. Because I'm still on haste by the Wizard, I get to bolt out of the enemy base. Bard and Warlock are not so lucky. The big bad enemy Wizard casts a spell and vaporizes the Bard into dust. To which I'm slamming my head on the desk because Wizard had Portent, 118 roll she had saved up, and could have given Bard the save she needed. Warlock is hold person by the enemy apprentice. And the rest is history, they both die. So the session ends and there's a pretty awkward atmosphere. I asked the Dungeon Master if the fight was winnable, and he tells me yes, it was definitely winnable. The apprentice and mercenary enemies were not that tough. Warlock chimes in, well, I guess mistakes happen. And Miranda goes absolutely defensive. She argues angrily that there was no mistake. She made the best decision given the circumstances. There's some back and forth arguments between Miranda and the players about why the Dungeon Master would just outright kill the party in an unwinnable fight, why she couldn't listen to my protest whether Miranda's decision was a mistake or not. The party is trying to be very polite about all of this, but Miranda sounds like she's on the verge of crying. She ends up quitting the Discord. Having invested about 25 or so sessions into the game, it was decided that we end the game here, as understandably having 3 out of 5 characters now gone leaves the story in an awkward spot. Bard and Warlock really don't feel like re-rolling new characters. We suggest starting a new game, and the Dungeon Master says he could think of something, but like all things, the channel slowly died out and the game ended. Miranda had left a bad taste in my mouth. I took this as a lesson that I need to be more assertive when it comes to addressing problematic behaviors, and that stubbornness and refusal to admit mistakes can end a game. Cheers to finally having gotten another horror story to post here. I do honestly think that you took the right lesson away from this story. Truth be told, you don't really know what you're going to get when you're dealing with people on Roll20 or really any online forum that's a looking for group. Sometimes you can find really great people, but sometimes you find the person who is always being kicked out from their previous campaigns and they insist that they're never the problem. A person like that is never going to be fun at the table, and they probably consider it a self-insert because they probably think in real life they're perfect. And you can tell they think that because they always push back out of character when people were just trying to be honest with them and try to find fun compromises. At the table, everyone's enjoyment is important. I feel like one thing that I kept seeing that really sucked was that the Dungeon Master would go out of his way to try to create interesting moments for other players, and then Miranda would come in and completely ruin it. Normally I'm a little more lenient towards people who are new players that make this mistake, but this person is a self-proclaimed veteran and they seem to always do it no matter what, and even when told directly to stop doing it. So when the Dungeon Master can't control them, and when every player at the table has decided that they're a problem, yeah, just kick them. Trust me when I say you're gonna have no problem finding another player on Roll20 that wants to play D&D. And honestly, I feel like when we cover these kinds of stories on the channel, they only get worse and worse until they inevitably ruin the campaign. They never improve. I really want to hear everyone's thoughts below. Besides the Dungeon Master pushing back earlier on, is there really anything that could have been done to save this campaign? Make sure to like and share the video, as it really helps the channel grow. And if you want to help the channel further, you can always subscribe or become a member. I always appreciate it. And as always, I hope to see you in the next video. Farewell for now.